Hello there. I am so glad you're here tonight. And just so you know, I'm a little tense about doing this topic because to me, it's kind of a catch-22. You know, this is something that needs to be discussed. It's a big, hairy deal. There's all kinds of stuff grieving with it. And I think it matters a lot because we have a lot going on in our country, in our world, in our environment, in our safe places. And there's a lot that kind of falls in the cracks sometimes. And I've been following this story for a long time. One of the people that I'm going to talk about lost her life in my area. And it's something that it really needs to be talked about a lot more than it is. But I'm going to be talking about the missing and killed. They didn't just randomly show up dead. They were killed. People who have been involved in our space program with our looking into the different types of craft, the people that have been doing all kinds of stuff. They've been looking at weapons. They've been doing all kinds of research. And right now, there are ostensibly 14 people who are dead. I'm not going to talk about all 14. I won't have time to do that. But I want all of their families to know how very much I personally care about what happened to their loved ones. Because I can't imagine, I mean, if I do a bad show, nobody's going to off me, right? Maybe. But if I get my wires crossed, I'm not going to be disappeared. You know, if Carl, you know, gets frustrated because I can't upload an image or something, then he's probably not going to do that either. It's just one of those things that is unbelievable. And it's been hiding in plain sight. Our government has known this was happening. They have. People don't disappear just into a void when they are well respected, top of their field, or they wouldn't be doing what they do. Researchers. I mean, these are good people. Well, I don't know about if they're good people, but they're good scientists. And I was shocked. I've wanted to do this show for a little while. And then as I was doing some research and reading on it, I heard, I don't remember who made the initial announcement that our government was going to be looking into this. And then lo and behold, I'm sitting there looking at stuff, and our president is talking about a commission to look into this, an investigation at least. I don't know if there's a commission formed for it yet or not. There needs to be. And whoever is doing this, it needs to be on the level of the Nuremberg trials, because you don't just do this. You know, we've got so many. And one person that I wanted to talk about, yeah, I've been hearing about these for a couple of years. And if you think about it, you probably have too. Okay, because it was one person that was involved that just disappeared, and they didn't necessarily say that they were working at, you know, NASA, or that they were part of JPL, or, you know, whatever. But it was a missing woman who, you know, she was out on a hike with her friends, and she was going over a ridge, and she just turned, you know, the picture is of her smiling and waving back at her friends, and she's having a great time. She's on a friend hike, right? Never saw or heard from her again. And I know that we had a lot of issues, particularly in California, with people that weren't supposed to be here. We didn't know their background history. Were there criminals? Were there, people that would just take a woman and never to be seen again? Yeah, there's trafficking. There's a lot of that stuff that was going on, and I don't know how she got lost, but she got lost. She was gone. And we're not talking people that aren't going to show up for work the next day, right? We're not talking about people who, nobody's going to miss them if they don't show up. We're talking about people who have lives, who have careers, who have friends. I can't even imagine what her friends thought. I travel with a group of women. Our husbands dubbed us, the wicked wenches like 20 years ago. But if one of us were to not come back, we would tear up wherever we were until we found her. That's what happens. When I fell and broke my knee, they didn't walk off and leave me. They got me help. These women, I'm certain, just tore that place up looking for her. It wasn't big news, was it? Until she was one of the first. And, it's just so weird that this has been allowed to go on. We, unless the government wants to tell us that ET came and took them home, I don't know. But I did look into some of these, and I'm going to start with somebody that I think is probably the newest. And this guy, you probably haven't even heard of him yet, or you may have, because he is all over the place. He's not on the missing list. He's just out there. And I found him because I was trying to find some information that I had on one of the other people. And so I just Googled, missing scientists on Facebook. Also, I looked at missing scientists, and this name came up that I hadn't heard of. Matthew James Sullivan, 39, Bronze Star recipient, USAF intelligence officer with a top secret clearance. He agreed to testify regarding U.S. government secret UFO crash retrieval program. Well, he saw non-human craft in USA possession. Dead 2 weeks before he was going to testify from an overdose of Xanax, I think a cold medicine, and something else. And I just don't think there's a lot that's not holding water on that. And he's really all over Facebook because he is kind of, and this is going to sound terrible, and I don't consider him to be such, but he's kind of the flavor of the week relevant to this topic because, he's younger. It was an overdose. It was an accidental overdose if it wasn't a helped along. And I'm not saying it was. But something happened because of his coming forward to testify. And, Lou Elizondo was who was setting this up for him to testify. And, you've all watched the hearings or probably you've watched if you watch the show, you've probably watched the hearings, right? But so many people have come forward. I know and have listened to some of these people in different venues, different conversations. And probably I'll reach out to see if I can get them on, because I think that I'm going to try to steer more towards a UFO based show. I love cryptids and I love ghosts and I love things that I can't explain. But I think this, and I'm tapping my notebook like y'all can see me do that, but I think this is something that matters. And when I was interviewing the other day with my guys here, Joe, and I'm going to be interviewing Jason also. But coming to this topic is mattering so much. I mean, this is not a nothing burger. This is a big deal. And I think that this is something that's going to affect all of us as a civilization. We're not the only people with missing scientists, but ours are the only ones I'm focusing on tonight, because it's scary. I mean, these people are well educated. They have worked for their country. They are working for their country. And I just can't get this. I can't imagine, apparently I'm wrong, that in this day and time, it would be that big a deal to talk about UFOs, to talk about the fact that there's been interaction with UFOs. You know, we had Roswell. We also had things before Roswell. When I interviewed, oh my goodness, how long ago was this? But when I interviewed Jacques Vallée, it was so interesting, because when I brought up Trinity, he just kind of went, oh, Trinity was a good bit in those times prior to Roswell, same area. And the only reason that people outside of the families that lived on that land knew anything about it was because when the UFO came in and crashed with 3 occupants, one of whom was deceased, one of whom was going to be because he was injured badly, and then another one that was wandering at the time, and 2 children found them, but they saw the crash. But the UFO clipped a I guess in that period, they called them transmission lines for the, hey, Lori, for the telegraph thing. And I don't know how that works. To me, that's just like, you know, ooh, black magic. But I do know how communications now work, though, because I had to work in a company that did that. But at that time, the boys saw the crash. They went and approached it. They saw, you know, markings on the metal in the craft. They saw the deceased UFO. They saw the one who was injured and the other one who was flipping out trying to take care of them. And they, because the craft clipped the telegraph line, they sent, we must be so very cautious. I'm trying, Robert. But the people at their base that used that telegraph line came searching to find out why it wasn't working. They were just tracing the line, and they found the crash site and they cleared it up. So not unlike Roswell. So, you know, when I brought that up with him, that made for some interesting conversation. I love Jack Vallée. He's so nice. That was when I had my neck surgery. And so I'm sitting there with this weird big scarf around. Y'all will see that. but it was so bad. I look terrible, but I'll still show you. But anyway, he is somebody that I'm so really glad I got to talk to about that stuff, because he pretty much knows things, right? And when I started doing Fate, I was just kind of like really intimidated because of the history of the magazine, the topics that I knew. I had read it, right? So I just was, it's so diverse what you can talk about here. And so that was an interesting thing. But from that point to now, it would appear that while we want these people at JPL, at all these other places, the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and we want these people to do the work, we do not want this information shared. And at the time that the woman close to me was found dead from an apparent suicide, after she had told everybody that that was not something that she would ever consider. All of the people killed always said they would never do that. Or a lot of them did, probably not all of them. I'm pretty sure one of the gentlemen never felt that he had to mention that. But it was really wild. Really wild. She had looked like energy burns on her hands. She was from here. She worked in Huntsville. And she went to get looked at for this stuff. And they were burns. So I am going to probably need my glasses. So no, there's no probably to it. I'm going to need my glasses because A, it's my handwriting, right? I always take notes to read from, but I need glasses to read them. Some of the people, we've been hearing a lot about this, where, we've had the Congress come and say, we're going to be researching this. Then Trump has said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to bring everything out. Well, I don't think that there has been a president so far, no matter who wanted to do this. Amy's case was very convincing. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad you know who that is. But when you get to this, this matter, Bill Clinton wanted to bring this out. There's so many presidents who have thought this worthy of public information and have not been, I feel like, allowed to bring this. Obama wanted to do it. So many people have wanted to do this. And it's above their pay grade, as they say. They are not authorized to do that. They're not even, I don't even know if a president would be fully read in on this information. To my knowledge, none of them have been. So remember when Bush the Younger was in office on 9/11 and they went in and told him that the planes had hit the towers, that face that he made, I think that will be the face of whoever actually gets read in on these projects. So, because seriously, we didn't go from the Wright brothers to flying to the moon in 40 years without help. But when I started reading this stuff, there were 11 individuals tied into sensitive military, nuclear, and aerospace research who had disappeared or died in very mysterious ways, or just, felt it necessary to say publicly that they would never kill themselves, and then there they were in a bathroom somewhere dead. But one of the people who disappeared in 2025. Monica Jacinta Reza, NASA, JPL, Aerojet, and Rocketdyne. She had a pretty strong background. She has been missing since June 22nd of 2025. No explanations, no idea where she could possibly have gone, no idea why she possibly went. I mean, just gone. And then one of the ones that really, really got me, and this is because of his position. You know, we've been talking about a couple of people who were tied together. They worked in the same places. You know, Carl Grillmeyer, astrophysicist with Caltech, NASA, IPAC, Air Force Processing. He was killed by a gunshot wound on his front porch. And this is recent, okay? You've been seeing him on the news. But he was north of LA. And he's an astrophysicist at Cal Institute of Technology, worked with Infrared Processing and Analysis Center, which works with NASA. And he was really famous because he was the one who discovered water on other planets. He was very well thought of, very well respected. And when I was reading further into this, he lived in the Antelope Valley, and his house was so isolated. I mean, just the land around it was phenomenal. There was so much space. And it wasn't a place that you would really approach if you were just kind of, you know, looking for something to get or somebody to accost, right? Because the odds were pretty good that if I lived there, there would be a munitions dump. I would not live there without protection. And it was very isolated, it's very off the beaten path. And so, you know, the reports relevant to this said that, well, it was a car hijacking, but the suspect, Freddie Snyder, was arrested for carjacking, murder, and burglary, not of him. And there was no reporting found that he was in the Grillmeyer vehicle. And that's typical. He has a cop. He's not dying, I promise. Tipper, are you okay? Tip? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But this guy, Freddie Snyder, you know, when I started reading the reporting on this gentleman, not Freddie Snyder, but Grillmeyer, it was all about how could this happen? You know, he was just shot dead. It didn't say anything about his car being gone, nothing. It was just that he was shot on his front porch. And I was just like, I don't understand. Where did the carjacking come from? Well, it was because apparently that carjacking, and it was some distance from his home. And yet they tried to link the carjacking to his death. Doubtful. Doubtful. I don't think that would be a thing. And, you know, when you sit there and you look at this stuff, you know, it's just illogical. And when I start seeing too many things that look like, oh, do I look like I could be being played for a fool? Yes, I've got pages of this. People think, and, you know, we don't pay attention. We get, or some don't pay attention. And, you know, it's like, ooh, see this nice shiny thing down here? Don't pay attention to this dead man. He's just down here. It doesn't matter. But look at this, you know, and that seems to be the way that we are taught to trust our government regardless. There's no way that, so-and-so could be doing anything negative, because, it's all about taking care of the people. So anyway, this with Dr. Grillmeyer, this just blew me away, because this was a man with contacts. This was a man who had worked in all of these places. He was well known in his industry, and they got him. Somebody got him. I don't know who, but I don't think it was, this poor man that they thought that they blamed the carjacking on him. I saw the picture of his house with nothing around it except an old white truck. Go figure. I'm being careful of it. But, there are 11 individuals tied to sensitive military, nuclear, and aerospace research who, they're not unalived, they're dead. I'm so tired of seeing all these made-up words when it comes to, trying to protect the sensitivities of people who would much rather protect imaginary feelings than say what happened to someone. It's just crazy. And this man was the one who, out of everybody, he shocked me. That this could happen to him shocked me. And the road was not by his house. I'll see if I can find that image, and I will put it up there for you. It was amazing, the amount of property around his house. So, and Antelope Valley is very isolated anyway. It's not someplace that you're just going to wander into and anticipate that people are going to welcome you to their door. It's not a place that you would just go to somebody's door. And, it's actually north of LA, so it wasn't that hard for him to get to work. But I just think that it's bizarre. Another person who has not continued his work, as we would say, Michael David Hicks, NASA, JPL, Physical Properties of Comets and Asteroids. The DART project successfully directed asteroids near Earth, near Earth asteroids away, and near Earth asteroid tracking, NEAT, and the Dawn mission. And with him, no cause of death was listed. So, when you sit there and you're looking at all these things, it makes you wonder, these people don't work in a void. They don't. There's so much that happens. There's so many organizations that they would be members of. They would have friends in their community. They would have colleagues that they discuss and work with. They would have so much information, so much conference time, face-to-face time, conferences, video or otherwise. They would be having to have lab time for experimentation or testing, or so much. There's so much interaction that happens with this type of work. And I just find it amazing that this is happening. Then this is another gentleman, and it sounds like I'm picking on this organization. I'm not. These people, you have to be this level of person to work in some of these facilities. So they do have mutual associations. Not saying that that has anything to do, who they work for or with doesn't have anything to do with what's happening to them. But it just really blows that this is happening to them. But Frank Maywald, and I'm probably saying that wrong. If I am, I'm sorry. NASA, JPL, 2024. No cause of death made public. He was the principal researcher at JPL, designed critical instruments for space missions. Pretty good guy, pretty high up, pretty intelligent, not somebody that's going to just disappear randomly, not somebody who's going to have, you wouldn't think, have their life taken from them because of what's happening to them. But principal researcher is a pretty big deal. Now, something else that I found interesting, I did not know this. One of the people listed on the possibilities of being a missing person relevant to this topic was Michael Levelsberger. And he was a U.S. Army Special Forces person. And if you followed the New Orleans, was it Mardi Gras or the SEC game, where they had the people that were run over in the French Quarter? This was the man who died in the Cybertruck explosion outside Trump, Las Vegas. So, had nothing to do with the other stuff, but he was Special Forces, and Special Forces does things that aren't always public. So, I'm just blown away. I'm blown away. And I'm going to say that the gentleman that I mentioned first, Matthew James Sullivan, who is going to be testifying before Congress, who was killed 2 weeks before his testimony. I'm not going to say he was killed. He suicided. Accidentally suicided 2 weeks before he was going to testify. I did not mean to say killed. But, it's timing is everything. And this is somebody that had to have good information, because somebody I do respect, Lou Elizondo, was setting him up for his testimony. He and George Knapp and, others were very instrumental in getting the hearings with our Navy pilots that interacted with the Tic Tacs. And there's so much stuff that it makes you wonder, why is this such a big deal for it to come out?